Уважаемый господин президент,
Mr. President,
дамы и господа,
ladies and gentlemen,
наши переговоры
our
прошли в
negotiations
конструктивной и
have been held in a constructive
взаимоуважительной атмосфере.
atmosphere of mutual
Были
respect.
весьма
We
обстоятельными
had
и
very
полезными.
thorough negotiations
Хотел
that
бы
were
еще
quite
раз
useful. I
поблагодарить
would like to thank
своего
once
американского
again my
коллегу
American
за
counterpart
предложение
for the
приехать на
proposal
Аляску.
to travel out here to
Вполне
Alaska.
логично
It
встретиться
only
именно
makes sense
здесь,
that we've met
ведь
here
наши страны,
because our
хоть нас
countries,
разделяют океаны,
though
на самом
separated by the
деле
oceans,
близкие
are
соседи.
close neighbors.
И я, когда мы встретились,
So when we met,
зашли из самолетов, я так
when
сказал:
I came out of the plane, and I've said,
добрый день, дорогой
good
сосед,
afternoon, dear
очень
neighbor.
приятно видеть вас
Very good to see you
в добром здравии
in good
и
health
живым.
and to see you alive.
По-соседски это очень
I think that is very
звучит,
neighborly,
по-моему, по-доброму.
and I think that's some
Нас разделяет только
kind words that we can
пролив
say to each other.
Дейто, там два
We're
острова
separated by the Strait of
между
Bering, though there are two islands
российским
only
и
between the Russian
американским
island
островом,
and
всего
the
4
US island. They are
километра.
only 4
Мы
kilometers
близко
apart.
соседи.
We're close neighbors,
Важно
and it's a
также,
fact.
что с Аляской связана
It's also
значительная
important
часть
that
общей
Alaska
истории
has to
России
do with our
и
common
США.
heritage and
Многие
common history between
позитивные
Russia and the
события.
US, and
Так
many
здесь
positive
по сей
events
день
have to do with that
сохраняется
territory.
огромное культурное
Still, there is
наследие
tremendous
русской Америки.
cultural heritage back
Православные
from Russian
храмы,
America. For example,
множество,
Orthodox
более
churches
700
and a
географических
lot of
названий,
more than
имеющих русское
700
происхождение.
geographical names of Russian
В
origin.
ходе Второй мировой войны
During the
именно на
Second World
Аляске
War, it was here
начиналась
in
легендарная
Alaska that was the
авиамагистраль
origin
для
of the
поставок
legendary
боевых
air bridge
самолетов
for
и
the
другой
supply of
техники
military
по
aircraft and
договору
other
Ленд-Лиза.
equipment under the Land-Lease
Это был
program.
опасный,
It was a
сложный
dangerous
маршрут
and treacherous
над
route
громадными ледяными
over the
пространствами,
vast
но летчики и
emptiness of
специалисты двух
ice.
стран
Job
делали
is
все,
going.
However, the
чтобы
pilots of
приблизить
both
победу,
countries did
рисковали,
everything to bring closer
отдавали
the victory.
свои жизни.
They risked their
Вообще,
lives and
вот
they
я
gave it all
сейчас
for the
только
common
что был
victory.
в городе Магадане,
I
в
was
России,
just in
там
the city of
памятник
Magadan in Russia, and there is a
российским и
memorial there
американским
dedicated to
летчикам
the Russian
и
and the
флаг.
US pilots.
Российский
And
и
there are two
американский.
flags, the
Я знаю,
US
что
flag
и
and the Russian
здесь
flag.
тоже
And I know that
есть
here
такой
as
же
well,
памятник. На
there is
военном
such a
кладбище
memorial.
всего в нескольких километрах отсюда
There is a military
захоронены
burial
советские
place
пилоты,
several kilometers away
погибшие
from
при
here.
выполнении
The
той
Soviet
героической
pilots that
миссии.
buried there who
Признательны
died during that
американским властям
dangerous
и
mission. We're
гражданам за
thankful to the
бережное
citizens
отношение
and
к
the
их
government of
памяти.
the US for
Это выглядит
carefully taking
достойно
care
и
of their
благородно.
memory. I think
Мы
that's very
всегда будем
worthy and
помнить
noble.
другие
We'll
исторические
always
примеры,
remember
когда
other
наши
historical
страны
examples
вместе
when our
громили
countries
общих врагов в
defeated
духе
common
боевого
enemies together
товарищества и
in the spirit of
союзничества,
battle
оказывали друг
camaraderie and
другу помощь и
allyship
поддержку.
that supported each
Это
other
наследие,
and
уверен,
facilitated
будет
each
нам
other.
помогать
I'm sure that this
восстанавливать,
heritage will help
выстраивать
us rebuild and
взаимовыгодные
foster
равноправные
mutually
связи
beneficial
уже
and equal
на новом
ties
этапе, даже
at
в
this
самых
new stage,
непростых
even
условиях.
during the hardest
Как известно,
conditions.
российско-американские
It is
встречи в
known that
верхах
there have
не
been
проводились более
no
4 лет.
summits between Russia and the
Это
US
большой
for 4
срок.
years, and
Минувший
that's
период
a
был
long
очень
time.
непростым для двухсторонних
This time
отношений.
was very
И
hard
скажем
for
прямо,
bilateral
они
relations, and
скатились
let's be
до
frank,
самой низкой
they've fallen
точки
to
со
the
времен
lowest
Холодной войны,
point
и это
since
не идет на
the Cold
пользу
War.
ни нашим
I think
странам, да,
that's
и
not
миру
benefiting
в
our
целом.
countries and the world as a
Очевидно,
whole.
что рано или поздно
It's
нужно
apparently
было
sooner or
выправлять
later
ситуацию,
we have
переходить
to
от
amend the
конфронтации к
situation
диалогу.
to move on
И
from
в
the
этом плане
confrontation
личная
to
встреча
dialogue.
глав
And in
двух
this case, a
государств
personal
реально
meeting
назрела.
between the heads
Конечно,
of state
с
has
условием
been long
серьезной
overdue.
кропотливой
Naturally,
подготовки. И такая
under the
работа
condition of
в целом
serious and
была
painstaking work,
проделана.
this
У
work
нас
has
с
been done in
президентом
general.
Трампом установились
Me and
очень
President
хорошие
Trump had
прямые
very good
контакты.
direct
Мы
contact.
неоднократно
We've
и
spoken
откровенно
multiple times. We spoke
разговаривали по
frankly
телефону.
on the phone.
К нам, как известно, в Россию несколько раз приезжал
And
спецпредставитель
special envoy
президента США,
of
господин
the president, Mr. Woodruff,
Регулярно
traveled out to Russia
контактировали
several
наши
times.
помощники,
Our
главы внешнеполитических
advisors and
ведомств.
heads of foreign
Как вы
ministries
хорошо
kept in
знаете,
touch all the
понимаете,
time.
одним из
And you
центральных
know fully
вопросов
well that one of
стала
the
ситуация
central
вокруг
issues
Украины. Мы
was the
видим
situation
стремление
around Ukraine.
администрации
We
США
see
и
the strive of
нынешнего
the
президента Трампа
administration and
содействовать
President Trump
разрешению
personally to
украинского
help
конфликта.
facilitate
Его
the
желание
resolution of
вникнуть
the
в
Ukrainian
суть
conflict.
и
And his
понять
strive
его
to
и суть.
get to the
Я не раз
crux of
говорил,
the
что
matter, to
для
understand
России
its
события
history,
на Украине
is
связаны с
precious.
фундаментальными
As I've
угрозами
said,
нашей
the
национальной
situation
безопасности.
in Ukraine
Более
has
того,
to do with
мы всегда
fundamental threats to
считаем
our
и считаем
security. Moreover,
украинский
we've
народ,
always
я говорил об
considered
этом неоднократно,
the
братским,
Ukrainian
как
nation,
это ни
and I've said
странно
it multiple
прозвучит,
times, a
в
brotherly
сегодняшних
nation,
условиях.
however
У нас
strange it
одни
may
корни,
sound
и
in these
все
conditions. We have
происходящее
the same
для
roots,
нас
and everything
это
that's
трагедия.
happening All the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we're prepared to work for that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will pursue that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings and to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress.
And now let's play Burlington's Guess That Price. Back to school means back to saving at Burlington. Wow, look how great that price is. Let's keep acing this test. Hold on.
By little they started to grow. It's still very symbolic. Still, we have a growth of 20%. As I said, we have a lot of dimensions for joint work. It is clear that the U.S. and Russian investment and business cooperation has tremendous potential. Russia and the U.S. can offer each other so much in trade, digital, high tech, and in space exploration. We see that Arctic cooperation is also very possible. And our international context, for example, between the Far East of Russia and the West Coast of the U.S. Overall, it's very important for our countries to turn the page, to go back to cooperation. It is symbolic that not far away from here, the border between Russia and the U.S., there is a so-called international date line. I think you can step over literally from yesterday into tomorrow, and I hope that we'll succeed in that in political sphere. I would like to thank President Trump for our joint work, for the well-wishing and trustworthy tone of our conversation. It's important that both sides are result-oriented, and we see that the President of the U.S. has a very clear idea of what he would like to achieve. He sincerely cares about the prosperity of his nation. Still he understands that Russia has its own national interests. I expect that today's agreements will be the starting point, not only for the solution of the Ukrainian issue, but also will help us bring back business-like and pragmatic relations between Russia and the U.S. And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump is saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good business-like and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and sooner better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. It was very profound, and I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite got there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who have come here, Scott and John Ratcliffe, thank you very much. But we have some of our really great leaders. They've been doing a phenomenal job. We also have some tremendous Russian business representatives here, and I think everybody wants to deal with us. We've become the hottest country anywhere in the world in a very short period of time, and we look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax. It made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all, but we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax, but what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, whose faces, who I know in many cases, otherwise, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon, and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I can see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all. Thank you.
So they didn't get nothing done. Did y'all hear everything that was said? Because this is what the whole video is all about. Did y'all hear everything that was said? Do y'all understand what was said? It's all been a Russian hoax.
Its literal breath. What will happen with Presidents Trump and Putin meeting right now behind closed doors? This historic moment playing out with the fate of Ukraine on the line.
How y'all doing? Push that like button. I'm just getting started. So much stuff I want to talk about. And I got to open your mind up to what's going on over there in Ukraine. Ukraine is Russian territory. 80% of the people who lives in Ukraine are Russian. 80%. All the Russians who had Russian citizenship was ordered to come back towards Moscow. And everybody who believed they're Ukrainian stayed. People don't understand what's going on. Push that like button. Can I explain to this? Can I explain to you? Do you know why Putin is bombing Ukraine right now? Let me break it down to you so you can understand. Putin don't want no American influence, no Israel influence, no Zionist influence, none of that in his territory. They They rode in Trump's limo together. Push that like button. Oh my God. Russia and America is a lot closer than what y'all think. If Russia wanted to do something to America, they could have been done something. If we ever get into it with Russia, they can send some ballistic missiles to America that can breach U.S. soil. And guess what? It's funny. Our military defense system ain't never been tested. Never been tested. So, and we know that Russia got the capabilities of breaching our. So even though we talk Russia bullshit, they do the same thing to keep their people over there. But behind closed doors, Russia and America is a lot closer than what you believe. See, America needed Russia in World War II to take the Soviets out. Without Russia, they'd have never been able to do it. A lot of people don't understand history and how a lot of this stuff repeats itself. How the people who's in power are in power for a reason. Their position holds a place for a reason. They've been playing chess for years, military chess. And prestigiously, Russia's one of those countries America don't want to fuck with. You know what I mean? Push that like button.